Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Spoilers with Zip and Cam. My name is Zoe Bell-Kanapaux. I am a 22-year-old author, an audiobook narrator. I almost said audiobook editor. Yeah. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Cam.
And I like watching movies better than Final Destination 4.
Don't we all? So today we watched Final Destination 5. Before we get into it, I just want to say, if you haven't seen the other videos, go back and watch them because we do discuss 1, 2, 3, and 4. And especially if you're watching this before the sixth movie comes out, you may want to recap. So anyway, I didn't remember this movie. Probably because, like, a majority of the DVD sets for a long time just had 1, 2, 3, and 4. They didn't have 5 as well. But they were really missing out on that market. I loved 5.
It's so much... I told you it was so much better than number 4. It steadily gets a little worse. Like 3 and 4. And then it comes back with 5. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. It was released in 2011. It does have a higher score than some of the other movies, specifically 4. I really don't think it's that hard to get a higher score for reviews. It has a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb, a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, 2.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and 2 out of 5 on Common Sense Media. So before we get into some of my favorite reviews, let's just go over the synopsis. During a bus ride with his colleagues to a corporate retreat, Sam experiences a horrifying vision. The suspension bridge that they and many others are crossing starts to crumble around them. When his vision ends and almost immediately starts to come true, Sam takes a quick action that saves a number of people, including his girlfriend, Molly, and his best friend, Peter. However, the survivors soon find that death will not be denied. That one I think is pretty accurate.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know what I was gonna say.
Cameron loves doing that.
I love thinking and then just completely blanking out on it and then remembering it like 5 hours later.
So, there's a lot of reviews that are just kind of like mixed. There's a lot of 4-star reviews. There's a lot of 3-star reviews. And frankly, I would like to preface this for our audience. I have a very different rating system, a 5-star rating system than a lot of other people do. And that's really why you can't take reviews very seriously, just generally, because one person's 1 star may just be that they didn't like an element of the movie. Or it may be one of those situations where someone goes out to the movies with their friends and they still want to have record that they watched that movie, but their favorite movies are action movies or sci-fi movies. And this movie may have been like the Minecraft movie or something, or an animated movie that they would never on their own watch. So really you just have to take reviews at face value. Oh my goodness, our cat just turned off the TV. She just pushed the button. We have a surge protector. And she just pushed the button. Yes! She climbed up and pushed the button on the surge protector. She's crazy. Oh. Yeah. We've got the worst plugs in our entire house. Or in our entire house. That we've ever had in any of the apartments that we've lived in now are the worst here. Anyway, like I was talking about with the reviews, you really just have to take them at face value because you never know what could be someone's yuck or their yum. So for me personally, a 1 star really just has to suck. It has to be the hardest movie to sit through. And I'm someone I like to do two things at once. I may crochet while watching a movie, and I find that very enjoyable. Because I don't have to look at my crochet the whole time. But if I'm like, let me go do the laundry, let me go make dinner. No, you don't have to pause the movie.
Yeah. Then it's a terrible movie.
Yeah.
If there's no, hey, can you pause this?
Yeah, let me go water my plant. I don't have any indoor plants, but let me go water the plants. Let me go let me go prune my cicadas or something. I don't know.
Prune a cicada.
Yeah. But a 2 star, I mean, I probably sat through it. It probably just wasn't something that was for me. And of course, if I write a review, I'll say that it's not for me. But then again, if something's a 1 or 2 star, I'm not leaving a review because at the end of the day, that may not mean that it's a poorly made movie. There could be wonderful cinematography, wonderful script, but I just probably didn't enjoy it. And I'm perfectly capable of admitting that. So, a 3 star, the movie was okay. Like, I probably wouldn't watch it again. And that's the lowest that I'll, like, publicly rate something is a 3 star. There's a lot of movies that I've watched that are like that. None of them are really quite memorable in my mind. Or I may watch it again because I don't remember anything that goes on in that movie. Right?
Yeah. But that's why you rated it a 3 star because it's
just not memorable.
Not memorable in either a good way or a bad way.
Yeah. Like,
so that's why it's just kind of middle of the barrel for you.
There was this movie, I think it's Jim and Marge Go Large. I think that's what it's called.
Oh, was it the one with Bryan Cranston and the lottery?
The Windfall Lottery. I thought that it was a great movie. It just wasn't very memorable.
No, but it's a good enough movie that you can rewatch it, and it's not like you're gonna want to scoop your eyes out with a spoon or anything, or watch LASIK.
And that's, it just wasn't very memorable for me. Like, I know that the Windfall Lottery has talked about it. I know that Bryan Cranston was in it. But it was just one of those movies. It wasn't like, because the best movies to me are like Goodfellas, Casino, really movies that are kind of classic. I love the crime elements in a movie where it's like financial crimes and stuff like that. I really do love sci-fi movies, some sci-fi, hard sci-fi, not like, I know that aliens are real. They've found life on other planets. And I know that it's probably just not what people think is there. I'm not an alien denier, but I don't like alien movies. So I wouldn't watch an alien movie and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go rate this. 4 star for me is that a movie that I think is great. But there's a few things that really tick me off. And usually this is when, it's just when there's like a really bad take in the movie. Or there's like a really weirdly paced scene. Or, something that just takes me out of it for a few moments. Or for a few scenes. Or one that's kind of hard to follow. Like, I would definitely rate The Grudge a 4 star. Because it was a little bit hard for me to follow.
Yeah, because there were so many characters and going back and forth because of the transitions are just kind of placed wherever, but they're still kind of placed with a purpose.
Yeah. Like, I would rate The Grudge 2 as, like, a 2 star. If that says anything for you. And we did not do a cinema spoilers on The Grudge 2 because I just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 5 star for me is a movie that I sat through the whole time. I put my phone down, I put my crochet down, and I just watched the movie. Or it's one of those movies where I could watch every single night of my life and not have a problem with it. So I would say that reviews, because not everybody follows my scale, reviews aren't everything. Because a lot of times, too, Cameron and I will love a movie and we'll look at the reviews and it's like, stupid. Um, so I'm looking for a review that is firstly in English because, like, some of these Spanish I don't recognize. And some of them have very big spoilers. So, you know. This is a 2-star review from Steve D. Solid cast, but just like all the rest.
I disagree. 4 is terrible, so I can't put it as just like the rest.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, this is my favorite one.
Well, what I was gonna say, because I know we did like a semi-rating before we finished everything when we were talking about in the last episode for Final Destination 4, we were talking about our favorite ones, and they were directed by James Wong. And the other ones were directed by a gross director who had a bunch of weird scenes.
Random racism.
Random racism as well. So, I would honestly rate this movie series 5, 1, 3, 2, 4.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best rating for order.
Imagine watching it. Well, you could also watch it like that. Because 3 kind of has nothing to do with... And that's something we'll talk about, because this one is different. It also features Tony Todd, whom we love. We love Tony Todd. We watch any movie with Tony Todd in it.
Yeah.
Cameron loves to do, like, the thing where he's just, like, non-verbal, and I put the microphone in front of his mouth, and he's like, and he's just nodding. But it's a little funny. So, I really don't agree with that review at all. This one's from Taylor L., and it is a 3-star review. This franchise puts together puddles of water and shoddy electrical wiring like peanut butter and jelly, an unexpected return to near greatness for a series that floundered in the 3D craze. The story is still the exact same pattern that you've come to know and love. Question mark. But Tony Todd resumes his role as a mysterious prophet. The shoddy visual effects have gotten cleaned up, and the narrative becomes more gleefully irrelevant. Instead of a group of scared teenagers, Death takes aim at a group of comedically unstable co-workers in a story that plays out like a Deadpool version of The Office. I feel like the only reason she said that is because there's a character in The Office in this movie.
Yeah, but it's also because it's based off of the a paper company. But I wouldn't agree with like a Deadpool version of The Office.
Hell no. The rest of the review. This movie tries to push the limits of believability in accidental murder in a way that the earlier films treated more conservatively, pushing away most of the unnecessary narrative for a series of increasingly creative scenarios. Strange that this is the film that put the nail in the Final Destination coffin. When it has not only brought back the right blend of campy fun and gore, but also comfortably quadrupled its budget. FD2 is probably still the best of the franchise, but 5 gives it a run for its money. Wrong. Final Destination 2 is not the best. Anyway, the last of the nitty gritty. This movie was directed by Stephen Quayle, who is known for Final Destination 5 and Into the Storm, as well as his earlier work as a second unit director for James Cameron on Titanic and Avatar. I think he did really well with this movie, especially considering that,
The crap he had to pull Final Destination out of.
Yes.
I.e., the Final Destination.
Yeah, like, I feel like James Wong did so much work in the first and third movie to try to clean up what happened in the second movie. And then, like, because it was every other movie that he directed. And then the other director, David R. Ellis, did 2 and 4. And that's what we were talking about in the last episode. But he had a lot to pull out of his ass to make this movie work and to make the Final Destination series just come back to life. He did CPR for 40 minutes at least.
Honestly, and then you were right that 6 is coming out next year. Final Destination Bloodlines.
And I really hope that Tony Todd is able to make an appearance.
I hope so,
because
too.
What we discovered, well, maybe this is obvious to everybody else, right? But this was not immediately obvious to me. Cameron and I were like, for 3 and 4, we were trying to figure out why Tony Todd wasn't in the movies. Because, he was in 1 and 2 as the mortician. The creepy guy that tells them that death is always lurking around the corner. And he gives them the idea that, there may be a way to stop it. He's always been the guy that's given them an idea of how to stop it. But he wasn't in 3 or 4 because those are set in California. So, that's why he wasn't there, because he lives in New York.
He's on the other coast.
But that also dispels the rumors that he's death, or he's like some entity, because if he were, I would think that he'd be able to be in California.
And just show up for these random occurrences.
Because it's not like he was ever advertised in the papers or anything like that. It wasn't like Tony Todd lookalike. They never said, like, this mysterious mortician guided them into a weird path. Never was that, like, advertised. Nobody knew who this guy was in each of the movies. Besides Clear Rivers, of course, who brought this new group of people over to him. But, it's not advertised as, like, this guy knows all. But, I mean, it kind of is. He's mysterious. That's what he's always described as, is mysterious. So, anyway, let's finally get into Final Destination 5. Would you like to begin?
No. You've been doing the narrating this entire time, so you keep it up.
Would you prefer me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the one better with words.
So let's get into it. It begins with a chef. I don't quite know if he's a sous chef or what his title is at the beginning of the movie, but he was asked by his boss to make breakfast right before this corporate retreat. So, let me get the names out for you guys. I accidentally closed that tab, like I always do. Okay, so I want to make sure that this is as concise as possible, because this movie, out of all in the series, really does deserve its flowers, its moment of recognition. So, Sam Lawton is a chef, and he works for a paper company as a sales associate. I don't know how low he is in the company, but it's pretty clear early on that his boss is named Peter, and his boss may be like a level or 2 above him.
And they're best friends.
Yes, they are best friends. There is another big boss that operates over the entire paper company, or that branch at least. And he's played by David Koechner, but his name is Dennis Lapman. So he's not yet there on the scene. But he's already talked about, So, anyway, Sam makes this big spread. So Peter's like, hey, I meant some stale donuts and like a gallon of milk. I didn't need you to do all this. And Sam's like, no, this is my passion. Like, it's no big deal at all. And it looks great. I even pointed out that the waffles looked good.
Yeah.
So, he says, like, He says that it's basically an apology for how bad his sales numbers were the month before. And Peter's like, dude, I saw the report last night. And Sam's like, ah. And he asks, has Dennis seen it? Not yet. He's going to look at them after the corporate retreat. So then we see his girlfriend, Sam's girlfriend, named Molly, drive up in her car, and she's wearing this huge necklace with a giant M on it. I noticed that.
Was that what it was?
It was an M.
I thought they were like lightning bolts or something.
It's like a cursive style M. So he goes up to her immediately. He runs up to her car. And he says, hey, what's this about? I saw you canceled your ticket, your flight to go to Paris with me. And she's like, we don't have to talk about it right now. I just, I don't want to talk about it right now. Which she drove up to his work. So, obviously you want to talk about it a little bit.
Well, she works with them, so... You're
right.
She's going on the work retreat.
You're right.
She said that she just didn't want to talk about it, and she was going to talk about it after the retreat. And so that's why he was like, well, let's talk about it now, because I don't want to be thinking about it for the next 2 days.
So, firstly... they're dressed, some of them are dressed in kind of comfy clothes, and other people are dressed more like business casual or business professional. And they're not really at work for a majority of the movie.
No.
They go like one other time after this incident. So, anyway, he's like, well, let's just talk about it now, and she breaks up with him. She's like, it's not working out. You want to do this internship. I don't want to uproot my whole life for that, which is incredibly valid. He's asking her to move to a different country. Obviously.
To Paris.
Yeah.
For the internship. But the flight that they were going to take was for his sister's wedding.
You're right.
The first one.
Yeah. So he has the tickets for the sister's wedding, but she brings up Paris. She's like, you want to do this internship, but we haven't even talked about it that much. And you're gung-ho for it. And I can't uproot my life. She has a job at the paper company as well, which I conveniently forgot about. But anyway, we see another woman drive up, or she shows up, sorry. Her name is Candace. She is a senior in college, and she's an intern. And she goes and she makes out with Peter in front of a lot of people from the company. Which, if you don't know, that's a big no-no. You really shouldn't be dating your coworkers, but especially...
not the boss and the intern.
Yeah.
It's like, she's not even paid.
Yeah. That's when you, dating your same level coworkers is one thing, but once there's also a power imbalance and an age imbalance, that's another thing. And we'll get into more of, the creep factor for Peter later on, because he does show himself to be a little bit creepy. So, he's like, calm down, sweetie. You're just an intern. You can't be doing this. But then he says, you should ignore the 12 p.m. or the 12 a.m. curfew. And she's like, why? And he's like, naked coworker bonding. It's so fucking gross. It's so gross. So finally, after a majority of the people are introduced, the boss gets there, Dennis, again played by David Koechner, and he's one of those bosses where it's I don't bother learning my employees' names. Everybody has to lay out the red carpet for me and kiss my feet as I walk into the building.
He honestly just played his character from The Office.
So he tells them, he's like, are we ready to go? And they're missing one person, who's Nathan. And he's the plant manager. So in the manufacturing part of the company, because it's the sales portion and then the manufacturing portion on a different side of the building, he's the plant manager for that. And he is on the plant side still. So Sam goes to run and get him. And Sam sees that Nathan is in a fight with the
Union rep.
union rep. And the union rep's being a real dick. Like, he's pissed off because he got overlooked for the position, and that because this guy's got 4 years of college, he's better than me. And it's like, well, yeah, he knows how to do time cards, and he knows how to do payroll, and all of those things. A plant manager does a lot, especially on the accounting side of things, how to divide hours that you're given based off of the sales, stuff like that. That's stuff that you have to learn, especially if you're doing any sort of accounting. It's never truly successful or just easy or even medium easy for someone who's maybe they're good at managing people, but they don't know anything about accounting. It's so difficult to learn that without traditional schooling. Wouldn't you agree?
Most definitely.
We have experience in this. So, you know. He goes and he gets them, though. He breaks up the fight and he goes and he gets them. And they finally all get on the bus. And the bus ride's fine. Isaac, who is another character who's played by PJ Byrne, he gets this phone call and he's like, nothing, could just go into this stupid retreat. And he's sitting right next to Dennis. Across the row, but the same.
Yeah.
he's sitting next to him.
Shit about this retreat right by his boss.
Yes.
His boss's boss, I should say.
Yes. And so he goes to the bathroom, and that's important. They get over this suspension bridge, and I was about to call him Nick because the actor's name is Nicholas, but Sam starts to have one of the traditional visions. He starts to see it all go down, like 1, 2, 3, and not the fourth movie. He starts to see it happen as if it would happen. He sees the suspension bridge breaking and falling, and, majority of the people fall. He sees, sorry, I just looked down. He sees Olivia, who's another character, fall and land on this pole that's on a sailboat. I'm not a boat.
It's like the main sail.
Yeah. The mast. And then he sees the bus, which still has Isaac in the bathroom. He sees that fall, and Isaac just gets out right before it crashes into the water. Yeah, and then he sees Candace die. He sees Dennis get covered in tar.
Well, it's him first.
Nathan first.
Yeah.
How does Nathan die?
I think he falls. Yeah, he just falls into the...
He falls, and then a car crashes on top of him.
Right.
Sorry about that. It's only shown once. And then it's Dennis. He ends up, trying to run, and then he slips, and he ends up holding himself against the edge of the street, or the suspension bridge.
Gets tarred.
Yeah, and then the tar truck that's there to retar or repave the street ends up, exploding and falling all over him. Then he sees Candace die after that. Sorry, Candace dies after Dennis. And then he sees his friend Peter die because he gets impaled by a bunch of poles. And in that scene, Dennis gets impaled by the poles, but his eye moves down 3 inches.
Hey, but it's a practical effect, so...
We can't complain too much.
Yeah. And honestly, if you got stabbed in the face, your face does move around a lot.
Yeah. So then Sam dies. He ends up getting chopped in half by some metal plating that falls. And the only person that would have survived is Molly. Also, another thing I want to mention before Olivia dies, she loses her glasses. And...
Fucking Velma.
Yeah, Karen just said fucking Velma. But she loses her glasses, and they show a blurry, the camera goes to her eye, point of view. Ooh, sorry. It goes to her point of view, and you see like a little bit of blur across the screen.
It's like she clearly could have walked across the rebar that or the
The
iron,
steel beam.
yeah, the iron beam that she's walking on. Could have easily walked on it, but she's over here like she couldn't see at all, and it's like, you're barely blind. You're fine.
She
Keep it walking.
she could see the definition between cars. She could see the hole that was there next to the steel bars that were exposed. I mean, it wasn't like she was legally blind or anything. It wasn't like it was like, yes, it would be a pain to try to read a page. It would be.
But in a matter of life and death, fucking run. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Like she could have easily seen the difference. And this is coming from two people who wear glasses.
And I'm blind as fuck.
You're like one step away from being legally blind. Yeah. His glasses are thick.
Yeah.
So, um anyway, she could have seen the difference between the steel beam and the water. But whatever, she freaks out about her glasses. And so the vision's over when Sam dies. He doesn't see any more of the vision. Um so then he's back in the bus. He sees stuff start happening. He cuts his thumb and he starts freaking out. And he's like, we gotta get off. We gotta get off. So he grabs his ex-girlfriend Molly, who's sitting next to him still. And he starts to run off with her. And more people start to follow. All the people that we've mentioned. Olivia follows, Peter as well. Candace, Dennis, Isaac, Nathan. They all follow. And so they end up getting saved. I mean, they do end up having to like shimmy around a few parts, and they have to run to get off the bridge.
But they didn't have to fight like they would have in their premonition.
Yeah. So they all make it out, right? And it's one of those things where it's just like they all make it out, and then they're a little bit skeptical of him. But then again, there was so much construction going on that bridge. Like, there was a hole with exposed rebar. But the rebar was cut. So it was just a straight hole in the side of the thing. And this is where we kind of assume it's New York. They don't outright say it. They're not like, this is the paper company of New York. But we can assume because it's a very big suspension bridge, and then there's quite a few things afterward that you can safely assume that it's New York. And then, our hunch was right. But, yeah, so they end up going back to the office after that. Like, they have a memorial for all of the people that died in the company. But it's not like really a memorial. It's just kind of like a somber day at the office. And it's not really shown much, I don't think. Right?
Well, no. It is. There is an actual funeral, and they hold. He starts like listing the boss's boss, David Koshner. He he lists one of the people that's sitting there as dead, and they all look at him like, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "Did he just say my name?" And they all make jokes about that they see dead people since he's sitting there with them, and they're laughing in the during the funeral. Yeah, but otherwise, that's pretty much all the funeral is.
And of course they have to speak to the police, because this is a huge tragedy. And why are you seen running out of this bus? And at first they think that it's a terrorist attack, or that this guy's just really mad because his girlfriend broke up with him. But that's not the case. Like, he stayed at the office all day, and it was revealed while he's being interrogated, it's revealed that it was just due to high winds. Like, there was, sure, they could have not had as many people on the suspension bridge, But the suspension bridge, whether it had people on it or not, including the construction workers, those are people, but it would have broken down. It would have fallen apart because of the high winds. You know.
Well, they said it was the high winds and quote unquote structural damage.
But they were trying to fix the structural damage.
Yeah, whenever you're cutting a hole in it, that's still structural damage. Even though you created it, it's still breaking the structure.
And they wouldn't have done that without cause, without needing to do something like that. So, yeah, the police officer just kind of like, or the investigator just gives up. He's like, he just kind of lets the case go. He's like, there's nothing that we can do. We have to let them go. They didn't do anything. And he genuinely believes them. He's just like, well, you probably just got one of those feelings, you know? You thought it was gonna happen. He didn't cause it. There's nothing to hold him with. So he just lets everybody go. And he's like the first sane investigator in the entire movie franchise. Every other one is like, oh, did you cause it? And then they do the investigation. Like in the first movie, it's cleared that Alex wasn't capable of doing that. Firstly, because it was mechanical issues on the plane. But they're still sitting there investigating him even before his friend dies. The first friend dies. So, you know, and then, of course, it happens in the second one as well. Even though, you know, the cop's sitting there, like, trying to figure everything out. But there's still chatter among the rest of the police department. The third one, you know, no one really listens to her. And she tells the cops everything, but they're just like, whatever. And they can't hold her. But they don't even look into it. And then the fourth one is just kind of like, where is anybody looking into this?
There's lack of exposition and just storytelling in general.
Yeah, so he's like the only sane person. He's like, yeah, I mean, people do have feelings sometimes. Like, you're like, I forgot something, let me stay in. And then it like is hurricane strength winds and rain, and you probably would have crashed your car on the way to work. You know, people get those feelings all the time, and he just accepts it. He's like, yeah, you know, if I hear anything else, I'll definitely be on the case, though. So then the boss, Peter, goes to his girlfriend intern's last gymnastics practice of the season before, like, what is it, like?
It's her senior year of
competition.
Yeah, and it's the last practice before finals.
Yeah, so she's like not wanting to practice at all, and instead of sitting, because this is a college, gymnastics, so of course they have like a huge like stadium to practice in, or at least one with a lot of seating. Instead of sitting down, because there is one other person sitting in the background, he stands really close to the mat. And he's just like, you can do it, Candace! You can do it! And she's not even on the bar. She's not even performing yet. She's just chalking her hands. But the whole time he's in the background like, you can do it, baby girl! Yeah! Aggressive, be aggressive!
Like, what do you mean be aggressive? It's gymnastics. Gymkata.
I fucking love that episode of Family Guy where no, Brian starts to do, Stewie teaches Brian the stock market. And so Brian starts working with these companies, and one of them breeds or steals dogs and breeds dogs to make dog meat. And so he gets trapped, and Stewie has to save him with Gymkata, which is gymnastics and karate combined.
On a pommel horse.
Yes.
On a pommel horse and offset bars.
Yes. And they're like, oh no, he has a pommel horse. And then they're like, we hope there's no uneven bars.
Even bars.
And then they look behind them and they're like, no, there's uneven bars. It is so fucking funny. But anyway, we see the perfect storm begin. We see at the top there's these
Death was doing Gymkata.
Death was doing Gymkhana. So we see these industrial fans, the ones that go in any gym, any sort of gym. We see them, and there's grates on top, and the grates are screwed in with rusty screws, but we see them with each sort of movement, we see it getting looser and looser. We see some water spill. We see someone plug in an electric cord that is very chewed up. Really, honestly, looks like one of my dogs got to it. They don't like chewing electric cords, but they do like chewing. These guys. Anyway, there's water that's dripping from the top. That no one spills water. It's dripping from the top, but it ends up being like quite a bit of water. And it, of course, is like right on the cord with the
Chewed up electrical cord.
yeah. So she goes and she goes to do the beam, and she does really good, but she keeps looking down at her feet. And Cameron brought up a good point. If you're looking down at your feet, wouldn't you see this rusty nail? Because she does this like move where she just switches feet back and forth. It's not anything like too motionless where she wouldn't like a wolf turn or something where she would be spinning around and she wouldn't be able to see it. She probably could have seen it, especially because she's staring at her feet.
Yeah, and there's this large rusty screw in between, pointed upwards on this white beam. So it's orange on white, and it's the only thing on a beam. And last time I ever looked at a beam, they're flat. So why didn't you see it? It's kind of odd.
Yes. But she ends up doing her dismount, and she does really good. You know, it's a good routine. The coach is like, good job, Candace. And of course, Peter's like, you got it, baby girl. You did so fucking good.
Baby girl.
He's just like, he's the only, like, there's one other person there, but he's not even paying attention. You see him, like, just looking around, like, whatever.
If they had iPhones with games, he'd have been playing a game on his phone.
Yes! And so, you know, this weirdly involves boyfriend, and I brought this up while Cameron and I were watching the movie. I was like, if I were her teammate, and this weirdly involved boyfriend is, like, sitting there for my practice, and, you know, everything I do, well, because it's a continuous, like, circuit training. Each person's doing something different. Some person's on the beam, some people are on the bar, some people are doing floor routines. So, first of all, you're distracting. Second of all, it's annoying and you're shouting. And third of all, it's weird. I don't want, like, I've done sports before, and yes, there were parents there. Parents are one thing, especially when you're a kid. I've also done, like, I did marching band, and their whole thing was don't pay attention to anybody around you, just do what you're supposed to do. But she's not paying attention to anything that she's doing. She's more paying attention to what Peter's saying. So it's like, you don't have the focus to be having this guy there. So as a coach, you would probably say something, especially at collegiate level. Because you don't have the focus to have this boyfriend there. And to do what you're supposed to do in your practice. But anyway, she then, the coach calls her and says, now you're going to do the bars. So she goes to the bars, and she's doing a great set. It's a great routine. You know, nothing real major. But the fan knocks over the powder, the chalk, right after her teammate steps on this nail that was left on the beam. She steps on it, she freaks out, and then she, like, jumps down, and the vibrations and the strength of the fan end up pushing the chalk, and she being Candace, freaks out. She freaks the fuck out, and instead of, like, dismounting safely, she just, like, jumps off the bars. And we see her just, like, curled up like a pretzel, really, on the floor. You see her leg bones stick out, and you see parts of her spine stick out. And this is really the demise of Peter. Peter does not take it well. You don't expect him to take it well, but he doesn't take it well. And he sees the coroner, and the coroner takes her away. And, of course, the coroner is Tony Todd. He's a coroner in this movie. And so then after that... What happens after that, Cammy?
His friend, is it Sam? Yeah.
Sam is the main character, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Sam comes over and is like, hey man, it's all cool. It's alright. And he's trying to comfort him. And that's when he sees Tony Todd. And then the next day, they're in the office. And...
I remember.
Yeah, so the boss is then on the phone with corporate, and he's trying to help close out all the accounts that need to be closed out for the people that are dead now. And then they're all standing around drinking.
Yeah, they're on the clock drinking. And Isaac, who survived, his name is PJ Byrne, he starts going through...
Looting!
He's looting the dead people's desks. So, he, one of the people had, in their top drawer, they had a mug that was filled with coins. So, at first, he's, scooping them out, and then he takes the mug and he just puts it in his pocket, all the coins. Then the next desk he checks, which is an aligning cubicle, a conjoined cubicle, has a gift certificate for a massage place. And first of all, he pricks his finger on a bunch of push pins that are out, and then he takes it. He takes the massage gift certificate. And we see Dennis just struggling through the conversation with his boss. He's like, they ask about somebody, and he's like, he didn't die. And they're like, yes, he did. He just doesn't know. At every point, they just show him not knowing his coworkers' names. So, then we see Isaac go to this massage place. And he's really rude to everybody there. And he's really gross, frankly. He's really, really, creepy. And he gives the receptionist the massage thing, and he's on the phone, and she's like, no cell phones. This is supposed to be a chill place. And so he says a different name to the girl that's on the phone. He starts off with a different name, and then he's like, Ashley, is that weird sound on your end or mine? And he slams his flip phone. So, which doesn't end the call. Slamming your flip phone doesn't end the call. But anyway, he tells the receptionist that she has a nice ass. And then another woman walks past and he says the same thing to her. So then he says something about a Buddha statue. He's like, wow, you've been eating a lot of biscuits. And so the receptionist was like, oh, I'll get someone in for you in just a moment. Because he asked about a happy ending massage. And for those of you that don't know, that's illegal because it's considered prostitution. So, and she tells him, this is a family friendly, this is a family run, we're professionals. So, she ends up getting this older lady that works there, and, she speaks in Chinese the whole time. And he's he starts to say something, and she cracks him up. And I don't mean he laughs. She's putting him in crazy positions, and you're hearing up his back and shit like that. And so she understands English, but she's not speaking it to him because he's fucking gross. Why are you gonna speak to him? He's being gross, and she probably heard him being gross because he was basically screaming the whole time. So anyway, then she pulls out this acupuncture kit, and it has a ton of needles, and he's like, no, you need to sterilize those. So she gets this alcohol, and then she starts doing it, and he's like, you understand English this whole time? And she's like, yeah, I do understand English, fat boy. In Chinese, yeah. But, you know, she's like, I don't have to speak it to people like you, which I fully agree with, you know? Don't indulge them. You don't have to indulge them. So she does the acupuncture, and my favorite, she puts it into, like, a little bit above the area between his eyebrows, and she tells him, this'll make your hair grow, fat boy. And so then she tells him, you're just gonna take a nap for 30 minutes, and she closes his eyes manually. She puts her fingers on his eyes and closes them. And so while she was doing all of the cracks on his body, we see the table itself unscrewing. There's like multiple little screws that are unscrewing. And he starts to see this fire from one of the candles. So he rolls off the thing. Instead of like getting up, he rolls off and he pushes all the acupuncture needles into himself. And then he's trying to escape this fire, but he just can't move fast enough with the acupuncture needles like jabbed in his body. So he ends up like pushing himself against the wall, and the fire follows him because he's covered in alcohol. And then the Buddha statue falls off the shelf and hits him in the head, and it squashes his head all the way down. And it was gross.
Yup. It said. That was the noise it made.
Cameron just said that was the noise it made.
It did.
I know, I was just saying.
It made squish on his head.
It made a squelching noise.
Yeah, squanchy.
Anyway, after that, we see again the demise of Frank. Peter, not Frank. The actor's name isn't even Frank. It's Miles. Miles Fisher. But we see the demise of Peter. He's just getting worse. And at this point, Sam and Molly are back together. And he's talking about taking this internship in Paris again. And he's like, dude, I think I gotta take it. You know, we've been given this opportunity. And I mean, really, like, what am I to do? What am I to do? So, after that, is the optometrist scene next? Or is it the one with Dennis and the union man?
It's him. It's the union dude.
Okay, so the next scene we see Nathan and this union leader who's been giving him so much trouble, and he knows that he can't fire him because, you know, you can't fire the union rep, right? And unions are great. We're very pro-union, but, like, don't be a dick because you didn't get the promotion. Like, you didn't get the promotion for good reason, because you're a dick to everybody. And that's revealed later on. Like, one of his coworkers, he's like, he was horrible to work with. So it's like, this guy's never met Nathan before, but he's telling him, oh yeah, Union Man was horrible to work with. But anyway, he's having an argument with Nathan, and Nathan sees that there's like a faulty piece of electrical or equipment, heavy machinery, and it's a hook, and it looks like really just like a giant tow hook. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. And he tells him, like, no, you have to move, and he's not listening to him, so he pushes him, try to push him out of the way, but the floor falls through. And the union man ends up getting hanged by this like tow hitch sort of thing. And so the police officer, of course, he's been investigating this whole thing. Forgot to mention that. But he ends up showing up. And Dennis ends up going down to see, like, what the hell is going on? And Dennis gets hit with a giant wrench over his eyes. And that's how he meets his end. Again, we see the demise of Peter. He's just getting worse and worse throughout the film. And so then we see the scene with Olivia. Now, Olivia is the one who had, like, mid-bad eyesight. She is at the optometrist, and her plan is to get LASIK. Now, Cameron and I are very, very scared of getting LASIK. Like, that would never, ever, ever occur between either of us.
Would not cross our minds.
No, I'd rather wear glasses my whole life. I'd rather put contacts in my eyes every day. Not happening. So, anyway, she decides that she's going to get LASIK, and she's really nervous about the procedure. But the doctor's trying to, like, talk her down, talk her off the cliff. Like, it's okay, this is a very routine procedure. This is what happens when you put the laser over your eye. And, I mean, if you really want to know about LASIK, just watch that one Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode where Kim Kardashian gets LASIK. It's awful. But they do show a lot of it. So, anyway, he sees that there's something wrong in her chart. And so he calls for his assistant, but she does not come. So he ends up just walking away. And the laser ends up...
While she's strapped down to the table, already with, like, the numbing in her eye. That way it opens up your eye. And, yeah, so she's strapped in, her head's clamped in, ready for the procedure. And he walks away while she's just, like, strapped in, nowhere to run.
He also takes this eyedropper without gloves on his hands. And he just does it over her eye. And then he puts gloves on. For the rest of the procedure is done, like, laparoscopically. It's done laserly. Like, you don't have, like, obviously you should wear gloves. But if you're just gonna pick and choose where to wear the gloves, one where you're stepped away from the patient and you're not touching them again, or the other where you're touching them, I'd wear the gloves, at least if I had to make that choice, when I was touching the patient. Anyway, she ends up getting, like, lasered through the eye. And while that's happening, Sam and Molly run to the optometrist's office, and they're like, we need to see Molly, Olivia, we need to see her. And the doctor's like, this is a very routine procedure, she's fine. And then you hear her screaming, and you see her dead because of the LASIK. The laser hit her way harder than it should have, than a normal LASIK laser would hit you. So that was the issue. Anyway, after that, Molly and Sam Sam goes to work, and he works at this, cafe called Le Cafe, what's the last word of it? No. It's like Le Cafe Monstro 81. So if you flip it back, like, it ends in an O. So if you flip it the opposite way, it says 180 on it. That's something you should know. Anyway, he goes to work, and he's a sous chef, and he has a great time at work, but he just keeps seeing danger all around him. Like, someone's got this, like, giant skewer, and they almost hit him with it. You know, there's, like, meat machines, meat grinders, one that, like, is supposed to flatten and tenderize meat, and it doesn't work properly, and he unplugs the wrong machine, and all of this stuff. He keeps seeing things that could potentially hurt him. But he makes it through the work night. And he's then shown cleaning up with his boss, the chef. And he tells the chef definitively, I want to do this internship. If it's still on the table, I want to do this internship. And then he asks, he's like, is it cool if I make something for Molly? And the chef's like, as long as you clean up afterward. So he gets the dining room set up for Molly. There's candles everywhere. And they're the candles that would be regularly at this establishment, but he lit all of them again, because you never leave a candle lit, especially in a restaurant environment,
overnight, for closing.
You would just blow them out. But he lights them all again, and he gives her this, like, wonderful looking chocolate mousse dessert dish, and he tells her that he accepted the position, and she's very happy for him. And then Peter comes knocking on the door to ruin it all, and he lets Peter in, Sam lets Peter in, and so Peter starts acting really weird. He's like, well, Death told us, or I was about to call him the mortician, Tony Todd's character. The coroner. He told us that, life could replace life. If I took somebody else's life, then, I could live. And so Sam's like, what did you do? And Peter's like, just describing what he thought about doing. He thought about pushing this woman in front of a truck. He thought about doing all of this stuff. But he said, why should I take some innocent person's life when I didn't deserve my life to be taken? I'm an innocent person. Candace, his past girlfriend, didn't deserve to get killed. And, you don't deserve to get killed, Sam. His plan is to murder Molly. So he pulls out a gun, and Sam, in a quick motion, he flips the table. And they run into the kitchen. And the police officer or the investigator, for whatever reason, is outside the restaurant.
It's because, is it Dennis?
Dennis is the boss.
The boss's boss, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Remember when, they went into the office before he got killed? He called the person, was like, he was threatening me. So he was tailing him the entire day.
Okay. So that makes sense now. I missed that. He does bring it up to Dennis beforehand. He's like, yeah, we're in danger, and if you kill somebody, you can make it out. So he makes the phone call right before he goes downstairs and dies by the wrench. He makes a phone call to the investigator, and that would be why he was outside the restaurant waiting to see what Peter was doing. So Peter does, as he's getting hit by the table, he ends up shooting, and so the investigator runs inside after calling for backup, and Molly's hiding in the kitchen, and Sam's trying behind glassware. She is hiding behind wine glasses and silverware. And so Sam's trying to fight him off, but Peter's so off his rocker. He is so off his rocker that he's like lighting all of the things. He's turning back on all the fryers, which, by the way, the fryers took like 20 minutes to get to the temp that any damage would be, like, any permanent damage would be done. It takes like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
Especially because he already had time to make mousse for her, so...
They were cooled down.
To prep everything.
Also, you turn off fryers like 20, 30 minutes before closing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not just like...
This is a professional restaurant, so they're breaking down way ahead of time.
Yeah, and they're like, we take our last table at 8:30. And their last order is like 9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one of those. So, these fryers are clean, first of all, and cold. So,
No way they're doing any damage.
A dirty fryer, especially if, like, the sides are really dirty, because the heating element is typically at the bottom, and in this specific fryer, the heating element was at the bottom as well. If the sides are really dirty, then that means that it can heat up faster because there's less oil there. Or it also could mean if it's really dirty on the heating element itself, it can heat up slower. So there's a lot of variables, but these fryers did not look used at all. But I did like that for this, whatever reason. I think they used a real restaurant, though.
Rev up them fryers.
Rev up them fryers. Anyway, each of the fryers had a slightly different color of oil. Like, one was a little bit older of oil, one was fresh oil, because deep fryer oil is very light when it's fresh. The older it is, the darker it is. So, they had that detail in, and as somebody who used to be a cook, I noticed that really fast. Also, he shoots this, I think it's like nitrous oxide or something that's used.
Galaxy gas.
Galaxy gas?
Yeah, it was straight up galaxy gas for the whipped cream.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was probably, nitrous oxide.
Yeah, so, he that's like just floating in the air. And, there's an event where Sam could have been killed. He falls on the floor. He could have been killed because there was a knife that could have landed, like, right next to him or right on him or right through him. but it just landed next to him. He's like, it's not your time. But it's Molly's time. And then the police officer investigator comes in and he sees Molly first. And she's like, Peter has a gun. And Peter shoots the investigator. And so she's like, well, you already got your life. You know, you don't have to kill me. She's like trying to talk him off the ledge. But then he's like, no, I got a life and I'm not going to spend it in prison. And you were just the witness to a crime. So I gotta kill you. But, what happens after that, Kimmy?
Then he gets impaled with a skewer.
Yes.
The same skewer that, Sam was almost impaled with.
And these are, like, they're
for the rotisserie chicken.
Yes, I was about to say, like, what you would cook like a kebab. They're not like that. They're legitimately gigantic skewered things, you know, so he gets impaled with that, and then Sam and Molly are like, you know what? We're gonna go to Paris. Fuck this noise.
Yeah. Fuck it.
He's like, I already accepted the internship. He can't say no now. Even though his whole kitchen was destroyed. Anyway, they end up getting on this flight, and stuff's a little weird. Like, the overhead bin won't close all the way. It just keeps, like, going, like, it won't close all the way. And Molly's like, hey, do you mind if I get the window seat? And she says it real sweet. And he's like, even though I'm, like, twice your size, you want me to squeeze into the middle seat? By the way, no one sat in the rest of the row by the time the plane
took off. Yeah, it's
yes.
like you could have moved.
But anyway, he's also not twice her size.
No, he's a very thin little dude.
Like, it wouldn't have been an issue for him to sit in any seat. Oh my god! Gary was under the blanket, and Billy stepped on him. So, anyway, they get on this plane, and they look over, and they see the boys from the first movie. They see Alex. They see Alex's friend, and Clear Rivers, and everybody get off the plane because they're fighting. And then he's like, what's all that? And the flight attendant's like, oh, some boy just had a panic attack. And then he starts to have that feeling.
Well, she said the boy was having a panic attack and said that he had a vision. That's what it was.
Well, that kind of like...
real, like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So, he cuts his thumb, which happened before the bus vision, that he had the bus premonition. And then he starts to, like, see it kind of happening. Like, he starts looking around and seeing, like, oh, shit. And then he had put on his headphones right before, and Dust in the Wind started playing.
Dust in the Wind.
I thought he was going to keep going, but the only words...
I don't know the words.
The only words we know to that song are Dust in the Wind. All we are is dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. Yeah, that's all we know. So... Anyway, we then see what happens after the people of Flight 180 are taken out. And in Final Destination 1, you just see the plane blow up. You don't see, like, the plane, like, staggering through this blow up. You just see it blow up. But there's, like, quite a bit of stagger. Like, one side of the plane starts to go, and people are flying out of it. And then, of course, Molly and Sam both end up... Well, Molly flies out of it. But then Sam ends up with the fate that Alex would have had he stayed on the plane. So it's, of course, revealed that this was a prequel to the first movie. Which I actually liked, because I did try to go back and find, like, what would be a plot hole. But, I mean, there weren't any obvious ones. Like... Everybody used an older phone model, you know, and I was like, this is a little weird for 2012. Like, why does this guy, this, like, player-type guy, have a flip phone? And then you realize that this is actually 2000. This is May 12th, 2000, for Flight 180. So I didn't I couldn't remember any sort of like plot holes that would have indicated anything like that. But yeah, so I mean,
Also, what's his name at the end of the movie?
what?
The one that took the union rep's life.
Oh my god. So the movie does not end there. The movie does not end there. We see Nathan, who survived because he thought that he took the union rep's life. So he thought that he would have survived and that it wasn't just a skip. Because we found out in the first movie you can be skipped. So he's at a bar and there's like this sort of like memorial going on for the union rep. There's images of him, and one of them he looks like Bryan Cranston. And I was like, is that the union rep? It is. And the next picture that you see is him driving the number 6 car from the 4th movie. So, you know, that's a good time. There's a ton of tie-ins to the other movies. It's not just like that the fact that Sam worked at a restaurant with 81, you know, which would spell out 180 if backwards. You know, it's not just things like that. There's a ton of tie-ins to the other movies. Perfect prequel tie-ins. It's not like well, he was driving it, but then he wasn't, or, you know, stuff like that. Like, it didn't show, like, the crash from McKinley's Raceway. But yeah, so he's at this bar and he's talking to this man, and this is where he finds out that the union rep was just a real asshole to everybody. And then he goes, well, I guess he got off pretty lucky. And the guy's like, how would he get off pretty lucky? Like, he died in a horrific accident. Nathan says that. And this unnamed man is like, well, they did the autopsy for the investigation, and found out that his vein in his brain was so enlarged that it would have blown any day. And then Nathan's like, any day, and then Dust in the Wind starts playing, and
Dust in the wind.
and then part of the plane flies through the top of the bar and crashes into it, which is not mentioned in the first film. It's just the plane.
That is a good point. That there was no oh, the 80 whatever people died, and then a part of the plane came through a bar. That would have made the news. If the landing gear hit a bar, it should have been through all the reports. But I mean, whatever.
I think it may have been one of those where they still realized that Nathan was there, because he wasn't in a ton of the movie. Like, he was separate from the rest of the cast because he worked in a different department entirely. Yeah. And it wasn't like he was dating one of the people in the first department, because they were all dating each other. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he wasn't shown a ton in the movie, but this was like the last like tie-in sort of thing. But that leaves more to be desired. I think they could have easily dominated in the 2010s with these movies had they continued, especially with the momentum that this one created. And I'm glad that they are revisiting the series, because I think that there's quite a bit more that can be done with it, you know?
And you did bring up a good point that it's open for prequels with
because Tony Todd's character, he says in one of the scenes in this movie in Final Destination 5, when he's talking about like death's weird and he has a plan for everything, and when the plan is disrupted, he gets upset. He says something because Peter, I don't remember if it was Peter or Sam, because frankly, they do look a lot alike. They're both dark-haired men. One has really bushy eyebrows, and that's how I really told the difference. But if they're standing and you just see the back of their heads, you'd be like, hey, guys! Like, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's Sam and that's Peter, left and right. No, you'd be like, hey, guys! Like, but he says, how do you know? How do you know about this? And Tony Todd's character says, I've seen stuff like this before. And of course, this predates 180. And we haven't seen any other sort of prequel, because even though 4 was awful, we still see that it happens after 180, after...
They bring up 180 in all the other movies.
Yes. So after 180, after the highway, because that's also another news article that she throws down, and then, oh my goodness, they don't throw it on the roller coaster one, but we know that that happens after Flight 180 and after the highway. So, you know, it's pretty easy to follow along.
It's 2 is a year after, because it's the same day as the
It's the anniversary.
yeah, the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
And then
3 is 6 years later.
6 years later, and then the car crashes, I think 2 or 3 years after 180.
Yeah, but there's after the roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens after the roller coaster, because you see the stuff for 180 and for everything else. But there's also not like a specific year mentioned in Final Destination 3D. I mean, you do see clear rivers, water. You do see like some of the other stuff. But, you know, I'm really excited to see where they go. They could easily do a prequel. I feel like now is a little easier to get with a prequel, just because, like, it's kind of easier to source the materials, and also to create a full set that is completely 90s inspired, because a lot of movies made in the late 2000s, especially with the writer's strike, had to be axed, had to be cut down on budget, had to be, you know, what have you. But I feel like it's a lot easier to pull off, because also there's not going to be like so much questioning from the audience, like, trellises weren't popular in the 90s, or they probably were popular in the 90s because they were popular in the 80s, but, you know, like that sort of thing. Like, no one had a modern architecture, fully glass house in the 90s, you know what I mean? So it could easily be done, well, not easily, but it could be done on a soundstage instead of trying to do it IRL, trying to source different locations, which was done with the 4th movie. So, all in all, what was your favorite scene?
Ooh. My favorite scene for this movie, I think it has to be the creeper in the massage parlor. I think whenever it's just it's revealed that it's the older Asian lady in the room, I think it's funny. And he's like, "Oh,
where's the younger you?" He literally said,
yeah,
"That's
what happened to the younger you?"
That's a direct quote.
He's a very funny character, and I wish he had lasted longer, only for the quippy remarks. But yeah,
he's just a perv. Like,
pretty much.
Being funny can only take you so far.
Yeah. Also, there was not much more developing his character other than being a perv.
Yeah, no, we didn't need to see more of that.
Yeah, it'd have been like 4 all over again.
Ugh, disgusting. Anyway, I think my favorite scene, I think it has to be the very end when they're on the plane and they see the 180 boys, because it does look exactly like.
I think they just used the same footage, because it turns over the camera and you see them on the other side of the plane, but yeah, I think it's just old footage.
It does look like a different angle from what I remember, though. But anyway, I thought it was really cool. And I love when they're able to just, like, successfully do that, because sometimes it's, like, the grainiest footage you've ever seen.
Yeah, but it could definitely be a unique angle from this, for this movie that was just not used for, like, the final cut.
Yeah, it could have been scrapped or something.
Something like that, yeah. Cutting room floor material.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you for joining us for Cinema Spoilers with Zip and Cam. we will be watching more movies. We will be continuing our movie marathon, and you can come see more episodes of the Long Winded podcast if you like more of us. Put in the comments what you'd like us to watch. We would love to watch movies that are suggested by you guys, you know? We're open to anything, really. But this movie marathon, I think, is a little bit focused on scary movies. So if you want to, like, pitch us anything, we'll be down to watch it. Or at least try to find it, you know?
Try, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, you can expect more episodes from us coming in the future, coming probably the next day after this is uploaded. I hope you have a great day. I hope you find a great movie. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.